The stars were quiet, but not for long. From the dark edges of the galaxy, massive ships appeared like shadows sliding through the void. They were the Vorath Armada, thousands of black gleaming warships bigger than any human imagination could hold. Their engines hummed with power. Their weapons glowed with deadly energy. For centuries, the Vorath had conquered worlds. Planets that tried to fight were reduced to ashes. Civilizations wiped out in hours. Now their scouts had found a small blue planet, spinning peacefully around a yellow sun. The reports came back quickly. The creatures there were called humans. The Vorath laughed. "Humans," said Commander Korath, his voice echoing across the command deck of the lead ship. "Fragile, soft, defenseless. How amusing." His officers bowed and laughed too. None had ever faced a species so weak. The Vorath believed victory would be effortless, as it always was. But the humans did not know about the Vorath yet. On Earth, the morning sun rose over the cities, painting glass towers with gold. Children ran through parks laughing. Mothers called their names. Birds flew across the skies, unaware that danger loomed far above them. People went to work, to school, to lives they thought were ordinary. Life was peaceful, simple, and that peace was about to shatter. In a small observatory in Nevada, Dr. Lena Torres adjusted the telescope. Her heart beat fast as she noticed strange shadows in the sky, far beyond the reach of satellites. They were moving with precision, forming lines no natural object could make. Lena's voice trembled as she spoke into her recorder. This is not a meteor shower. These are ships. Large ships. Too large." Within hours, the world felt the Vorath presence. Satellites flickered and went dark. Communications jammed. Panic spread like wildfire. Airplanes returned to the ground. Ships turned back to port, and people stared upward in fear and confusion. Governments held emergency meetings. Scientists scrambled for answers. Humanity was unprepared, almost helpless, facing an enemy they could barely understand. On the International Space Station, Commander Elena Davis watched the Earth below with her team. Her heart sank, but her mind raced. "We're not ready to fight them head-on," she said, her voice calm but firm. "Our weapons, our ships, they're too small, too weak. But we won't surrender. Not today. Humanity will fight." Her words carried more than strategy. They carried hope. She could feel it in her crew. A stubborn, quiet hope that refused to vanish even in the face of certain death. The Vorath broadcast a chilling message, sending it across every channel on Earth. "You are insignificant. Prepare to die." The words caused terror, but somewhere in the hearts of humans, fear turned to something else. Determination. Parents held their children closer. Soldiers gritted their teeth. Scientists and engineers knew that every second counted, and every plan could mean survival or extinction. In New York, an old man sat on a park bench, feeding pigeons. He looked up at the sky and whispered, "We are small, yes, but maybe, just maybe, we are stronger than they think." Across the world, ordinary people, farmers, students, teachers, doctors, felt the same strange spark. Humans had always faced impossible odds. They had survived disasters, diseases, wars, and storms. Perhaps now the galaxy would see that same spirit shine. By evening, the first Vorath ships hovered over the oceans and continents. Shadows stretched across the land. Cities went dark. The hum of alien engines shook the air. Panic became chaos. People ran, hid, prayed. Soldiers aimed rifles, jets roared into the sky, but the difference in power was clear. The Vorath were not just bigger. They were faster, stronger, and more deadly than anything humans had ever built. And yet, in small pockets of resistance, humanity's courage emerged. In a hidden command center in Tokyo, a young officer stared at the radar. Her hands shook, but her eyes burned with fire. "They underestimate us," she muttered. "They will laugh, and then they will see." That night, as the world held its breath, the Vorath looked down on the blue planet and laughed. They laughed at the tiny ships, at the primitive defenses, at the fragile humans scurrying beneath them. Victory seemed inevitable. The stars had never known a weaker opponent, But laughter can be dangerous, for even the smallest creature can bite when cornered, and humanity had a bite no one had ever imagined. In the darkness of the universe, a spark was forming. A spark that could grow into a blaze called courage, hope, and defiance. And from that spark, the first human fleet would rise. The Vorath did not yet know it, but the war had already begun. The first day of battle changed everything. The Vorath did not wait. Their massive ships swooped across the sky, their weapons blazing like stars ripped from the heavens. Entire cities went dark. Skyscrapers crumbled under energy beams. Oceans boiled where missiles hit, and the very ground shook beneath human feet. Military bases fired their defenses. Jets screamed into the sky, and soldiers risked their lives to hold lines that seemed already lost. But it was no match for the Vorath's sheer power. Entire squadrons of human fighters were destroyed in minutes. Satellites fell like shooting stars. Humanity had never seen such terror. In the chaos, Captain Raj Patel gritted his teeth as he prepared his squadron for the first counterattack. He was young, only 30, but the weight of command pressed on him like a mountain. "We can't beat them head-on," he said to his pilots, "but we can survive. We fight to send a message. We fight to show we are not afraid." His words gave courage to the few pilots under his command. They had no hope of winning this fight, but hope was not what mattered. Bravery was. Humanity had always been brave in the face of impossible odds. Today would be no different. The squadron launched from Earth's last remaining carriers. Their ships were small and fragile, patched together with old technology, recycled parts, and desperate ingenuity. They zipped through the sky like a swarm of determined bees. The Vorath laughed when they saw the tiny human fighters approaching. "Pathetic," Korath said. "They come like ants to a lion. They will be crushed." But the humans were unpredictable. They darted between debris, weaving through explosions, using their knowledge of Earth's orbit and gravity to their advantage. Captain Patel led daring maneuvers, looping around the enemy fleet, dodging massive weapons fire and striking where the Vorath least expected. The first hit came suddenly. A human fighter found the weak spot of a Vorath destroyer, a flaw the invaders had never imagined anyone could discover. With one precise strike, the massive ship exploded in a blaze of fire and metal. The Vorath fleet faltered. Their laughter faded into confusion. How could such fragile creatures cause such damage? On Earth, people watched the news feeds in disbelief. A small squadron, barely 10 ships, had damaged a massive invader. Children cheered in shelters, parents held hands tighter, and soldiers felt a spark of hope ignite. Humanity, it seemed, was not as defenseless as everyone believed. Captain Patel and his pilots pressed on. They did not fight for glory. They fought for survival, for their families, for every human life on Earth. Each dodge, each strike, each maneuver carried not just strategy but heart. They were fighting against fear itself. Meanwhile, Commander Elena Davis coordinated the defenses from orbit. Her fingers flew across the control panels, redirecting missiles, guiding human fighters, and keeping satellites online as long as she could. She was a calm storm, a presence that reminded everyone that humanity could stand even when all seemed lost. Hours passed, and the human squadron returned to orbit, battered but alive. Only a few ships remained intact, but their impact was clear. The Vorath had underestimated humans. They were clever, resilient, and fearless. Rumors of their bravery spread among the invaders. Whispers of human courage reached the ears of soldiers who had never doubted victory. On Earth, the survivors began to organize. Civilians helped where they could. Engineers repaired ships, doctors tended to the wounded, and teachers and students carried supplies to shelters. Every act of courage, no matter how small, became a piece of humanity's defense. Even in the face of destruction, people refused to surrender. Captain Patel looked out from his ship at the burning Vorath fleet. He felt exhaustion, fear, and grief for the friends lost, but he also felt pride. Humanity had struck back. They had shown that even against impossible odds, humans would fight. They would fight not because they had to, but because they could not do otherwise. That night, the Vorath fleet regrouped in orbit. They were furious, confused, and shaken. Their arrogance had been challenged by a few fragile ships from a tiny planet. The Vorath laughed no more. For the first time, they saw humans not as insignificant insects, but as unpredictable, dangerous, and fearless. And somewhere deep in space, Captain Patel and his squadron repaired their battered ships, knowing the battle was far from over. But hope had taken root. Humanity had survived its first strike. Humanity had shown courage, ingenuity, and the fire that no weapon could destroy. The war had only begun, but for the first time, humans knew that they could fight. And perhaps, just perhaps, they could win. The days after the first strike were unlike anything humanity had ever faced. The skies were filled with silence, broken only by distant alarms and the hum of human ships preparing for the next battle. Earth itself seemed to hold its breath. The destruction left by the Vorath had been terrible, but the humans had survived, and surviving had sparked something stronger than fear. It had sparked hope. Commander Elena Davis stood on the bridge of the orbital station, staring at the planet below. Cities were damaged, power grids flickered, but humanity was not broken. Her eyes traced the small dots of human ships in orbit, fragile, battered, yet alive. "We have shown them we can fight," she said to her team. "Now we must learn. We must become stronger." On Earth, engineers worked day and night. Factories that once built cars, planes, and machines were repurposed into building ships and weapons. Scientists hacked old satellites and communications to give humanity a new edge. Civilians volunteered to repair damaged systems, carry supplies, and train in any way they could. In the face of devastation, the human spirit refused to yield. Captain Raj Patel oversaw his squadron's repairs. His ships were patched with scrap metal, old engines, and weapons salvaged from destroyed Vorath debris. Each ship bore scars from the previous battle, and each pilot bore memories of friends who had not returned. Still, they worked tirelessly. "Every ship we repair is another chance," Raj told his pilots. "Every fighter who flies with courage reminds the Vorath that we are not weak." The Vorath, watching from their massive fleet, were confused and frustrated. Their arrogance had been challenged. "They are tiny," Korath growled, pacing in the command room. "They are insignificant. Yet they fight with determination, persistence. It is unnatural." The humans had found ways to exploit the Vorath's overconfidence. Using hit-and-run tactics, small squadrons avoided direct confrontation while striking vital systems. Human ingenuity, combined with courage, created victories that were impossible to predict. Each success was small, yet each was a beacon of hope, spreading through Earth and into orbit. In Tokyo, civilians cheered as news of a successful strike reached them. Farmers in rural fields celebrated when a human pilot returned safely. Children painted pictures of spaceships, of heroes soaring into the stars. Even those who had lost loved ones began to smile through tears. Humanity, battered but unbroken, was finding its strength. Captain Patel prepared another mission. This time they would not simply survive, they would test the limits of the Vorath fleet. "We are small," he said, speaking to his squadron, "but we are fearless. They think they can crush us. They laugh at our ships, our tactics, but they have never fought humans before." The squadron launched into space, weaving through debris fields and using the planet's gravity to evade the enemy. The Vorath laughed at first, seeing tiny ships darting among their massive vessels, but each maneuver, each calculated strike chipped away at their confidence. One human fighter, piloted by a young woman named May, destroyed a Vorath communications array, cutting off command signals to an entire wing of their fleet. The invaders were stunned. Back on Earth, Commander Davis smiled at the reports. "They think they can intimidate us," she said. "But we are learning. We are adapting, and every time they underestimate us, they fall behind." The humans were no longer merely reacting. They were planning. They studied Vorath technology, mapped their patterns, and discovered weaknesses in their formations. Even though their ships were smaller and weaker, humans were faster, smarter, and more unpredictable. Each battle became a lesson, and each lesson a step toward survival. For the first time, the world felt united. Governments that once argued worked together. Nations that had been rivals collaborated to repair and rebuild defenses. Civilians of all ages, backgrounds, and skills contributed. Humanity had found strength in unity, courage in adversity, and hope in the face of terror. In the Vorath flagship, Commander Korath clenched his fists. The humans' unpredictability disturbed him. They were fragile, yet they fought like nothing he had ever seen. Each success they achieved was a message. We are not afraid. We will fight. We will endure. That night, as stars twinkled over the battered Earth, Captain Patel's squadron returned home. Ships were scratched and scarred, pilots exhausted, but hope burned brighter than ever. Humanity had learned that they were not helpless. They had learned that courage could outweigh size, unity could overcome fear, and determination could challenge power. The war was far from over, but the spark of hope had turned into a small flame. And as that flame grew, the Vorath would learn a truth they had never known. Humans may be small, but they were fearless, and from that flame, a new human fleet would rise, stronger, smarter, and ready to fight not just for survival but for victory. The human fleet moved like a river of determination through the stars. Though smaller, their ships were faster, smarter, and guided by courage no weapon could measure. Captain Raj Patel led the front lines, his hands steady on the controls, his heart pounding not from fear but from resolve. Every pilot knew the risks. Every ship was fragile. Every move could mean life or death. Yet no one hesitated. Humanity was learning to fight, and fight they would. The Vorath had grown careless. After weeks of underestimating humans, they assumed that the next strike would be easy, that the humans would scatter or surrender under pressure. But humanity had changed. Their tactics were no longer predictable. Fighters darted in and out of asteroid fields, used debris as cover, and struck at weak points the Vorath never imagined. The invaders' precision, once terrifying, now faltered against sheer unpredictability. Captain Patel's voice echoed over the comms. Stay sharp. Stick to the plan, but remember, adapt, improvise, survive. We are humans. We do what they cannot anticipate. A single human fighter, piloted by Mei Lin, soared past a Vorath command cruiser. With nerves of steel, she fired a perfectly timed blast into the ship's energy core. The massive cruiser shuddered and exploded, a cloud of fire and metal raining through space. Other ships followed suit, striking at shields, engines, and weapon systems with relentless precision. The Vorath fleet reeled, stunned. How could such fragile creatures deal such damage? On Earth, people watched in disbelief. News feeds showed small human ships destroying enormous Vorath vessels. Children cheered from classrooms, adults held their breath and then smiled in hope, and soldiers felt pride swell in their hearts. Humanity was proving something the galaxy had not seen before. Even the smallest, weakest species could fight back with courage, intelligence, and unity. Commander Elena Davis coordinated from the orbital station, her calm authority holding the fleet together. She rerouted energy to shields, directed fighters into weak points, and kept communications alive despite Vorath jamming attempts. Every decision she made rippled through the fleet, turning panic into precision, fear into determination. She understood the stakes. One mistake could cost thousands of lives, but she also knew this. Humanity was not here to die quietly. The turning point came when Raj Patel spotted the Vorath flagship attempting to regroup. The massive ship radiated power, its weapons capable of obliterating the human fleet in minutes. Most would have fled. Most would have surrendered. But not humanity. Patel's squadron executed a daring maneuver. They split, luring the flagship into a trap, weaving through debris, then attacking from multiple directions at once. The Vorath flagship fired, energy beams cutting through space, hitting and destroying several human ships. The loss was heavy. Hearts broke with every explosion. Yet the remaining pilots pressed forward. Fear was present, yes, but it was controlled, transformed into a weapon itself. Every human who survived that moment felt something impossible: the power of courage. Finally, the flagship's defenses began to fail. Captain Patel, seeing the opportunity, ordered a coordinated strike. Fighters and bombers attacked simultaneously from every angle, overwhelming shields and engines. The massive ship shook violently, sparks and fire erupting across its hull. The Vorath, who had laughed at humans just weeks ago, now panicked. Their orders became chaotic. Their formations collapsed. In the heart of the flagship, Commander Korath roared in anger. "Impossible! These creatures, they cannot be so strong." He paced as alarms blared, unable to comprehend that such fragile beings had challenged the mightiest fleet in the galaxy, and won. Back on Earth, millions of people stared at the night sky. The explosion of the Vorath flagship lit up the heavens. For the first time, humans cheered openly. Not for revenge, not for hate, but for courage. Humanity had survived. Humanity had struck back. Humanity had proven that size, strength, and fear were not the only measures of power. Captain Patel's squadron, though exhausted, felt pride beyond measure. They had fought when hope seemed impossible. They had struck when the world trembled. And most importantly, they had shown that humans were not merely prey. They were warriors. Commander Davis looked at the reports from her station. "This is only the beginning," she said softly. "We have won today, but the Vorath will return. Still, today we showed them who we are. Today humanity began its legend." For the first time, the Vorath fleet did not chase or laugh. They retreated, wounded and cautious, understanding for the first time that humans were not to be underestimated. And somewhere in the hearts of every human pilot, engineer, and soldier, a new feeling burned. Courage had become victory, and hope had become unstoppable. The war was far from over. But the galaxy had learned a truth it could not ignore. Humans fought with something no weapon could destroy: fearless, relentless, and unbreakable spirit. The galaxy watched in silent awe. Humanity had survived its first strikes, and now the human fleet had grown stronger. Ships that were once fragile were now reinforced with clever technology, patched together with courage, and guided by minds that refused to accept defeat. Every vessel was a testament to human resilience. Every pilot a living proof of unbreakable spirit. Commander Elena Davis stood on the bridge of the central station, her eyes scanning the stars. Below, Earth's cities were scarred yet alive. Humans had not only endured, they had adapted. She turned to her officers, her voice steady and full of determination. "The Vorath underestimated us. They thought fear would break us. They were wrong. Humanity does not surrender. Humanity fights, and now we strike back with everything we have." Across the fleet, Captain Raj Patel prepared his squadron for a decisive attack. His hands hovered over the controls, remembering every loss, every friend who had fallen. Each memory strengthened him rather than weakened. "We fight for them," he told his pilots. "For those we lost, for those who remain, and for every human who refuses to be afraid. Today we show the Vorath our true power." The Vorath, watching from their massive vessels, could no longer laugh. Their arrogance had been shattered. Each human strike had left scars, both physical and psychological. They saw the courage of humanity, and it confused them. How could such small, fragile creatures challenge the mightiest fleet in the galaxy? The human fleet moved with precision. Every fighter, every bomber, every command ship had a role. They had learned from every battle, studied every weakness, and now they acted as one. It was not just skill or technology, it was spirit. Every pilot, engineer, and soldier carried the weight of Earth in their hearts. Captain Patel led the charge. His squadron weaved through asteroid fields, dodged deadly Vorath energy beams, and struck at command vessels with calculated fury. Every human ship that survived the initial fire became a weapon, a thorn in the enemy's side. The Vorath flagship was their target, a colossal, terrifying symbol of power that had crushed countless worlds. Today it would face something it had never faced before: the heart of humanity. The battle was fierce. Explosions tore across space, lighting the darkness like a storm of stars. Human ships were lost, pilots vanished, yet each sacrifice pushed the fleet closer to victory. Fear existed, yes, but it was transformed into determination, into precision, into courage that could not be measured by numbers or firepower. On the Vorath flagship, Commander Korath roared in frustration. His sensors were jammed, his ships were damaged, and the humans kept finding ways to strike where they were weakest. "How can they endure so much?" he demanded. "How can they fight with such courage?" His officers were silent, afraid to answer. For the first time, the invaders faced an enemy they could not control. On Earth, people watched the night sky. Explosions lit the heavens, but their fear was replaced by awe. Children whispered prayers for the pilots, families held each other tightly, and millions of hearts beat with hope. Humanity was no longer simply surviving. It was standing, proud and unbroken, against the impossible. Captain Patel spotted an opening. The Vorath flagship's shields flickered under relentless human fire. "Now!" he shouted. "Strike together." Every squadron moved as one, bombers firing precisely, fighters dodging and distracting, engineers guiding energy to critical points. The massive ship shuddered violently, sparks flying across its hull. For the first time, the invaders feared not their weapons, but the humans themselves. The flagship exploded in a storm of fire and metal, a signal that shook the Vorath fleet to its core. Their formations broke, their confidence shattered. Humans, small and fragile in appearance, had defeated a symbol of terror that had crushed entire civilizations. For the first time, the Vorath knew fear. Captain Patel's squadron returned, battered but victorious. Tears filled his eyes. Not from joy, but from the weight of the battle, the losses, and the courage that had carried them through. Commander Davis addressed the fleet over comms, her voice calm but powerful. "We have shown them who we are. We fight not because we must, but because we can. Humanity is strong, humanity is fearless, and humanity will endure." The Vorath retreated, their arrogance broken, their pride wounded. For the first time, they knew that humans were more than fragile creatures. They were a force, unpredictable and unyielding. Humanity had proven that spirit, courage, and unity could overcome even the greatest odds. On Earth, survivors celebrated quietly. They honored those lost, repaired what they could, and remembered the bravery of every pilot and soldier. Humanity's story was changing. From despair and fear, a legend had begun. A story of courage, of hope, and of an unbreakable spirit that no enemy could destroy. The war was not over. But humanity had taken its first true victory. The galaxy now knew the name of a small blue planet, and the invaders would never forget it: Earth. And in the hearts of every human, a fire burned brighter than ever, a fire that would carry them through every battle to come. The galaxy was quiet after the storm. The Vorath fleet had fled, their arrogance shattered, their pride burned away by the courage of humanity. Space, once filled with the hum of war, now held the echoes of victory. Humans had fought when everything seemed lost. They had struck when hope was fragile. They had shown the universe what it truly meant to be fearless. Commander Elena Davis stood on the bridge of the orbital station, looking at the stars. Her eyes were tired, but her spirit burned brighter than ever. Ships returned from battle, battered and scarred, yet still flying. Pilots saluted as they docked. Engineers cheered. Civilians watching from Earth clapped, cried, and whispered prayers of thanks. Humanity had survived the impossible, and now it had triumphed. Captain Raj Patel floated in the zero-gravity chamber of his flagship, staring at the stars streaked with the aftermath of battle. He remembered every friend who had fallen, every ship that had been lost, every moment when hope had almost failed, and yet humanity had endured. He could feel pride swelling in his chest. Pride not for glory, but for courage, unity, and the unyielding human spirit. "We did it," he whispered. "We fought. We survived. We won." Across the Earth, people looked up at the sky. Cities were damaged, forests had burned, oceans had boiled in places, but life remained. Children played in rubble-strewn streets laughing despite the scars. Families embraced, tears flowing freely, grateful for survival. The planet itself seemed to breathe again, freed from the shadow of annihilation. The Vorath, defeated and humbled, retreated into the darkness of space. Their leaders whispered fearfully among themselves, recounting the bravery of humans. They are small, Korath admitted reluctantly, but their courage, it is unlike anything we have faced. They fight with heart, with spirit. They are dangerous. And in that admission, the galaxy learned a hard truth. Humanity was not weak. Humanity was extraordinary. Commander Davis addressed the fleet over the comms, her voice calm but filled with emotion. Today, humanity has proven its strength. Not through power, not through numbers, but through courage, unity, and the will to fight for what is right. We have faced the impossible, and we have endured. This is only the beginning. We are human. We are fearless, and we will protect our home. Captain Patel watched as his squadron prepared to return to Earth. Each ship bore scars, each pilot bore memories of loss, but each also carried hope. Every human who survived, every act of bravery, every life preserved became part of a story that would echo through generations. This was the story of courage against odds, of unity against fear, of a species small in size but immense in spirit. On Earth, ceremonies were held to honor those who had fallen. Statues were erected and memorials built, not only for the soldiers but for every civilian who had contributed to the survival of humanity. Children learned the stories in schools. Artists painted murals of ships soaring through the stars. Humanity had turned tragedy into inspiration, pain into determination. Captain Patel walked among his pilots, shaking hands, hugging those who had survived, comforting those who mourned. "You are the reason humanity stands today," he told them. "You are the reason we are free." Every act of courage mattered. Every life mattered. And because of you, Earth remains in our hands. As the sun rose over a battered yet beautiful Earth, humanity celebrated, not in arrogance, but in gratitude and pride. The war had taught a lesson no textbook could. Courage, unity, and hope were the greatest weapons of all. No matter how strong an enemy seemed, a determined heart could change the course of history. In the distance, scattered among the stars, the remnants of the Vorath fleet fled, never to underestimate humanity again. They had learned that this small blue planet held creatures capable of defying destiny itself. They had learned that humans were not just survivors, they were legends. Commander Davis looked at Earth from orbit one last time. Her voice was soft yet filled with conviction. "We have fought for our home, for our people, for each other. Today we have won, and tomorrow we will continue to rise. Humanity will endure, humanity will thrive, and humanity will never, ever be defeated." And somewhere across the galaxy, as the Vorath whispered tales of defeat, humanity's name echoed. The humans. They fight like gods. The stars were no longer silent. They hummed with life, courage, and hope. Humanity had survived. Humanity had fought. Humanity had become legend.